So I'm looking at a new hotel, doesn't it?
Council submission on going for housing growth proposed playback.
Katrina.
She's back.
Stop it. Yeah, Yanni's got a question, but are you just say your little preamble there, Mark, please.
And stuck up like
So
that.
take it as read.
Take it as read.
Take it as read. It's been a briefing on the submission and we've sought to reflect the feedback from council.
Okay, Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering if we could incorporate the assessment that we did as part of the Social and Affordable Housing Action Plan for Greater Christchurch, which basically talks through the issue of just having more capacity doesn't lead to more affordability for people on low and medium incomes. So I was just wondering, given we've heard around the homelessness situation in our city, that we should be making stronger reference to actually there needs to be more work done on intervention. So yeah, I'm happy to circulate the text. I mean, just to quote, basically says attempts to influence the market outcomes in the continuum in terms of market sale price or rents are likely to mostly impact households on medium or high incomes, who for those most part have less of an affordability issue than lower income households. Moreover, while GCP councils have recently adopted enabled planning frameworks which could encourage more market-based housing, this is unlikely to assist in the supply of affordable housing for the neediest low income households. So that's a direct quote from the report research that we've had previously. And I'm just wondering if we could just put a section in here saying that we remain concerned at the increase in homelessness and that there still needs to be intervention in that sector, or that aspect of the market to improve outcomes for those that need it the most.
Just my question about against all Mark, are we putting, and I agree with what Yanni's trying to get to, but are we putting in something that really, as a council, we just had David Close in here talking about the little small 1-bedroom units, and we should encourage things like that on land that we've got. Don't worry about going to government, we can do it ourselves and we can lead the way. You know, we can tell government whatever we like, whether they listen or not, it's a different story. But we do our own thing. Bruce Rendell was here, he told us about this land in Blake Street. David Close came up with a bloody good idea, I reckon, and if that helped get 10 people out of a car, we're on a win. So I think we're doing it ourselves. We can maybe write it into your submission, but I think we just let the government do what they're doing. We'll look after ourselves and be the leader in the thing.
That was a question mark.
Yeah, the question is, Celeste has got a question.
Anything. I guess it was, yes.
Hang on, let Mark respond to Yanni's.
Yanni piece.
Can we put it in?
Certainly we've considered that and could include something, but going back to the Greater Christchurch Partnerships Joint Housing Action Plan, there's a number of methods by which we can deliver social and affordable housing. I think we can rely on there's a Greater Christchurch Partnership submission that's on the same proposals, and in their submission being that the GCP developed the Joint Housing Action Plan, they've made a point that the partnership highlights the opportunity through the design of Pillar 2 improvements to use infrastructure funding and financing tools such as development levies and value capture mechanisms to support initiatives like affordable housing and providing partners with ongoing revenue to support that growth. So we've certainly picked up the social and affordable housing aspects in the Greater Christchurch Partnership submission. There's nothing to preclude it being in this submission, but
Covered anyway.
It's covered in the Greater Christchurch Partnership submission.
Thank you.
He's also noted it, and it won't hurt to have it in ours. It just reinforces the message. He's noted it in point 34 in the submission.
Okay, sorry, Yanni. Celeste, do you have a question, or are you just?
Yeah, it was really just clarifying, because my understanding, I agree, David Close's presentation was fantastic, but ultimately they still have to get funding to deliver these things. So when we say council's leading the way, we're in this case we're providing a lease, but they don't actually have funding. So that's something that we need to be supporting if we say that we're leading the way. So it's more of a comment, but making sure that that is captured in the submission, is saying council needs the tools. So if you think that's been represented in the report, that's the key thing for me.
Silly, just with reference to councillor Harrison Hunt's point, paragraph 34 does, of the submission, not of the report, talks about many factors impacting housing affordability, which is to councillor Johansson's point, and that is on demand side as well as social development policies. We recognise supply is important, but we urge council to tackle housing affordability issues holistically rather than relying on supply to deliver affordable housing.
Okay, if you can find a way to put a sentence in there along those lines, talk to councillor Johansson to sort of.
What I just described in the
It looked like you just said when I was talking to Mary Malone, you.
You're just
Quite
put something in there.
Bit of the GCP stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specific.
So, righto, so Tyler's happy to move this on, we'll have to second it. Okay, so yes, Pauline will go
Oh,
into.
not full debate, just want to thank you. I think it's an excellent
great
submission
work, yep.
again. And I think mainly coming back to my view on localism, which I just spoke to before, but once again, this is, and you've asked for flexibility here. So there's a lot that you're supporting or we're supporting, but we need to give local councils flexibility to sort out arrangements for our own areas that suit our areas better. And we also need to look at intensification in the right places, which is part of localism as well, and being careful that the big cautionary red flag here is the unplanned growth aspect of it, which would have big impacts on infrastructure costs and particularly around our transport planning. So I think it's really good that you call that out strongly. Also, housing quality called out again, making sure that we recognise that sunlight and basic needs are still really important. And we talked about that in our briefing as well. So I think you've captured all the things that we were really concerned about at that time, but particularly I'd just like to reinforce that the local voice must be listened to and we need flexibility, not this top-down approach all the time. We need to be recognised as knowing what we need ourselves. So thank you. I'll be supporting this today and really good submission.
Andre.
Our local voice voted against density in areas like around the Carlton Mill area or Somo. So instead what we're going to end up, you're allowed to build more density in Northwood and Belfast than you can around our central city. So unfortunately the local voice failed and here we are.
We're in debate now, okay.
It did, yeah.
Tim?
It did. Density is no longer going to be in the right areas.
Tim?
Thank you. Well, we can beat around the bush here, and I think it is a fantastic paper, and thank you very much for this. But the fact of the matter, and Melanie mentioned it a bit earlier on, it doesn't matter which political party it is in government at the moment. The fact of the matter is we're in a housing crisis because 40, 50 years we have been selling our land and allowing non-New Zealanders to buy it. They inject a huge amount of money. That changes the fabric of our country. It really does. For council then to fund social housing as a band-aid on a main artery that's bleeding. We have got to change as a country. Smaller countries like the Cook Islands, etc., they woke up to this a long time ago. You can have a very, very wealthy individual come in and buy half the country, which totally destroys that fabric of that community and that whole social structure. We have this now, and we've got to change what we're doing. Our economy is based on real estate. If you looked at Germany, that would be seen as an epic fail, and it is. So I know it's my rant, but it is the actual fact, and I will stick by it. Thank you.
Tyler?
Oh, that councillor's
Just saying.
I agree with a lot of it, but it sounds like that first part was taken out of the Winnie playbook.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I
Same age.
you know the problem that we see around house prices is actually around generational issues. We've got a generation that actually bought their house for practically $20 and selling it for 2,000. So you know, a lot of them have multi-owned homes. They've probably got up to 5, some of them, and this is just your average nan and granddad that have actually bought into the housing market, which again we see, which many people would call old money. And then you've got people like my generation or even younger having to pay $700,000 for a 2-bedroom home because they want to just get on the market themselves to build up their family. I mean, even myself, you know, our family, we had to buy a 3-bedroom flat with a sleep out that was a bit wet and cold, and that was for $327,000. If you look at the house prices that went up after the boom, it went up to $500,000 on average. So, you know, those are the things we need to think about. Our generation having a hard time with that. So one thing I really liked about the submission is it quoted in point 33 about urban environments and creating a blue-green corridor and ensuring that the environment and the amenities within their houses are good for all people, not just single homeowners, multi-room homeowners, families, old people. Everything needs to be having good amenity, good environment, build around transport corridors, go near shops and infrastructure and commercial activity. It's great. So that's one thing I really appreciated. I think the submission was fantastic. Staff did a great job, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Chris Bishop comes up with in terms of housing growth. Kia ora.
Footage goals, Aaron?
Yeah, couple of aspects I'll touch on. I myself am not scared of foreign owners coming here and buying properties. I don't mind. Actually know a lot of people in the Filipino community that had the opportunity to come here to help with the rebuild, and their wives work in the hospitals and in the older people's villages and stuff, and a lot of the men working in the trades are fantastic members of our society, and they get to move from a country where they'd never have the opportunities, them or their children, and come here. And when you go to the citizenship ceremony, you see them happily sign up to a life that, and we're all immigrants here, and that's part of what makes our incredible culture. So I have no issue with that. My issue is around the aspects of the housing market, which no one's touched on, which are non-productive. When you take out the cost of the land and the actual building itself, and I mean just the tradesmen that build the building, that's not a big chunk, or it's a reasonable portion of your cost, but it's not all of your cost. There's a whole lot of people clipping the ticket, and I'm pointing the finger at health and safety for one, because the press did an article, I'm going to say 3 years ago, that said that the average health and safety cost per house in New Zealand is $45,000. Where's the value in that? Because and people will say health and safety, yep, but when I was on the health board, it was clearly shown to us that the accident rate never went down, A&E numbers never went down, ACC claims have not gone down, and workplace deaths have stayed about the same. So all of those billions of dollars spent have not changed. You know, it's all, they're all population percentage-based numbers. It's no one's any better off, and industries themselves, we've dumbed them down, and so there's a lot of costs now that go into housing that weren't there 30, 40, 50 years ago, that make housing more expensive for no real gain. And the other part of the equation is, once upon a time, almost no one under the age of 40 ever bought a brand new house. You bought into the bottom end of the market and worked your way up. That was always the Kiwi way. You usually bought the cheapest house you could afford in the neighbourhood that was most desirable for you to live in. And then you worked your way up. That was the Kiwi way. To own a house in your 20s that was brand new was just almost inconceivable. And for the kid that grew up in Woolston in a Kithe home for half his life, that was a good start. And my mum and I had come from a boarding house prior to that, so it was a huge leap up, and I enjoyed it. And now I live in Herwood, next to a crematorium and an airport, and I don't know about that either. I love the area. I'd live next to the runway, but I'm grateful for the house that I have, and I love my neighbourhood. But we all work our way up, and that's how we get there. You don't start at the top. Yeah, what are you doing for a holiday? Smell a two-stroke.
Yeah, thank you. I think Christchurch provides, or Greater Christchurch provides, a really interesting case study in what happens around capacity versus affordability. And according to Stats New Zealand, when you look at, for example, the inflation that we've had, the rents in Canterbury have gone up higher than other parts of New Zealand. So for a region that has about between 55 and 65,000 extra capacity at the moment for housing development, we've got some of the fastest growing, we've got one of the highest rates of rental increases according to the inflation statistics that came out from Stats New Zealand, compared to anywhere else in the country, including places like Auckland and Wellington, which do not have the same capacity for development that we currently have. So fundamentally, just enabling more capacity for housing isn't actually addressing it. And you can also look at like the city mission and the issue with homelessness that we're now facing as a city. So although I support a lot of the things in this submission, I do think it's important that we do highlight the concern that unless we get things like inclusionary zoning, unless we get things like market intervention around getting affordable housing for people that need it the most, we are going to struggle, because the current settings, as one of my council colleagues has alluded to, around property being an economic wellbeing tool for New Zealand, it's failing. It's creating an inequity, an intergenerational inequity at a much greater level, and we have to try and solve it. But we don't solve it, in my view, by just allowing more capacity in terms of zoning, unless we put some of those other interventions in place to require that when we rezone land, we get a certain percentage goes back to affordable housing for people that need it the most. It's actually very common all around the world. Many other cities have those sorts of mechanisms and interventions to leverage the benefit that private developers get when land gets rezoned, so that it goes back into helping people that need it the most. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, we don't have that. And as a result, we're seeing a huge rise in inequity in our city and in our region. So thanks staff for the submission. I am grateful that we could include a little bit more around the very real statistics that we have in our region about what's happening around housing affordability, around rents, homelessness, and the fact that we've got ample capacity, but we're still seeing people struggling to afford to find somewhere to live.
Right, I've heard enough, but Mel's one.
I just, a great submission from staff. The thing that comes through in multiple paragraphs within this is about what Pauline talked about, which is doing planning of our infrastructure in a cost-effective way instead of unplanned. You know, if we want to provide services to the people that live in our city when they move into a new house or wherever they're living, we need to be able to have that planned in advance rather than doing something reactive that's going to cost us more. So I think that point's been well made throughout the whole submission that's been written, and I hope that it gets read. So thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you. Right, I think we're all pretty happy. We've got a mover and seconder. Yes, we have. I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Brilliant. That's carried. Thank you very much.